you ever heard the sound of freedom?
Welcome to another 5-Minute Flip.
What is up, Flip-A-Ponamai? Welcome to your 5-Minute Flip for January 14th, 2026. I do have some long-form interview episodes coming in the works. Doing my sabbatical for December just kind of put me a little behind on the scheduling process. It takes some time to get things scheduled with guests. So those will be on their way. But in the meantime, today is part 2 of the things I learned from my December sabbatical. And, reflections, things that I'm taking away from it that I think will be helpful for you as well. One of the main things, the huge things that led me to needing the sabbatical was lack of margin, and lack of margin comes from lack of boundaries. I've talked before on the podcast about limits, and it's really easy for me to say to you, for someone to say to me, you need to set limits in your life. You're a human and you have limits. God created you with limits. You need to have boundaries. Those are sort of similar concepts, so that you have margin. It's sort of like the advice and wisdom that you need to say no, you need to not be a people pleaser. And a lot of us that struggle with these things, we know those things. Like, we know that we should do this, right? Like, we've listened to those sermons. We could preach those sermons, but there's something deeper, much deeper within where this stuff comes from, the motivation, the insecurities, and that we've grown up with our whole lives and that have shaped us into our adulthood, that are the things that motivate and fuel that automatic response to saying yes, that automatic sort of anxiety about needing to do more, and that can go in so many different directions. But let me talk to you about with my sabbatical. So one of the main reasons to do the sabbatical was just to get a break from those things, like to be in a space for a month where there weren't demands on me. I did some catching up during that time to kind of have a clean slate. But I met a lot with my counselor, and you can't just do a sabbatical as a vacation or a break, like, oh, that's a good break, and then go back into what you left, like the same rhythms, the same patterns, the same habits. If you do that, or the same expectations even of yourself by others, if you do that, your sabbatical was a waste of time, right? You're just going to go right back. Everything's just going to flood right back onto your plate, and you're going to be burnt out again. So one of my main goals was to do some of that deeper work. And coming out of it, I knew I have two choices. And I think for you listening, you have the same two choices. The context is just going to be different for where you're at on the burnout spectrum and sort of whatever that context may be. But the two choices for me, I can be healthy, and healthy means, have margin, really just have a sense of peace about life, going at a pace that is enjoyable, which is really the opposite of, I don't necessarily mean enjoyable like it's you're going to an amusement park every day or something like that, but I mean the opposite of being miserable, being stressed all the time, just this feeling of sort of dread, and there's always more to be done, and you can never get it all done, those sorts of things. So the first choice is I can be healthy, which is not feeling that way, and having a sense of enjoyment, a sense of peace about life, about creation, even about God, and the life that I'm living as a Christian, as a pastor. I can be healthy and disappoint people. So those two things must go hand in hand. For my health and disappointing people. That's choice number one. Okay, so choice number two is I can be unhealthy, and all the things I just described. And includes spinning sideways with mental health stuff. It includes addiction stuff for me and for you. It includes anger stuff. It includes irritability. And so I can be unhealthy. That's what that looks like, the burning out. and please people. So those two things go hand in hand. Those are it. Those are my two choices. And those are your two choices. And as you reflect and get perspective and talk, as I talk to, even mentors of mine, knowing that the people that I'm pleasing in that people pleasing on choice number 2, they don't care about me if they can't respect and understand my need for, excuse me, let me grab a drink, my need for margin and boundaries. So my preparation in doing some of the deep soul work that I've been doing for years, but doing, in a concentrated way when you're away from it during a sabbatical, and then moving back into regular life, is I'm going to disappoint people. And that is very difficult for me. I'm going to disappoint people in my church. I'm going to disappoint people that want to email me, that are asking different things of me, that want to meet with me. I'm going to have to limit the how many sort of close proximity relationships that I have if I'm going to be healthy. And in my health, that includes being a effective minister. It includes being an effective pastor. It includes being able to continue to do those things. So within this, preparing for these boundaries and margin and preparing to disappoint people, when even now those muscles are very weak in me. But I, during my sabbatical, was having to reflect through and talk to God about and listen to him on, and with my counselor, what my role is as a pastor. For me as a pastor, particularly in the urban context where there's a lot of urban poverty, and my heart for justice, my heart for the oppressed, for the poor, is that Jesus' kingdom is here, and Jesus can change people's lives and habits, and there is a sense of redemption on a societal level, where, as we talk about a lot on here, systemic racism, economic injustice, these are things that we as Christians are to be about being the solution for. Okay, so I was raised in formational, my 20s, my 30s, in these types of books and trainings that told me that it is essentially my job to fix these things in people's lives individually and across the even societally, like I just said. And I took that into, and some of that is good. I still promote, this being a part of our Christian discipleship and calling, as you know. But I took that into my role as a pastor and as a church planter. And the confusion is in the parts that I control about other people's lives. So the people that I'm ministering to, particularly in my church urban context, and it's particularly when people have been raised in a really deep level of trauma. And some of you may relate to this if you have friends or family members that are deep into addictions, and it's that whole codependence thing, and us getting enmeshed, and it's up to me to change their behavior, right? So this leads to burnout. It leads to misery because I can barely control my own change in my life, let alone putting it on myself that I can change someone else's behavior. And as a church planter, feeling like I have to in order to have a successful church plant, because I need this person also to be there. So learning that my job as a pastor is to love people and shine the light of Jesus in the darkness is a huge difference than thinking that it is my job to change, that I control the change that happens in their life. In a healthy way to differentiate from someone that you're trying to help is to go halfway with this person and say, hey, I'm here for you. Here's steps you can take, but you have to come halfway. When we go 90% of the way, 95% of the way, And a lot of it's that deep insecurity too of like needing, I don't know, needing this for us even, or whatever that may look like for you. That is a different feeling of going to bed at night than my job is to love people and shine the light of Jesus in the darkness. And there's going to be a lot of brokenness that stays broken in that. And we don't like to admit that out loud. I don't like to admit that out loud. But understanding that I did not cause these problems in someone's life, like in their actual life, I wasn't the one that abused them. I wasn't the one that neglected them. And even systemically, that I didn't personally create the systemically racist, systemic economic injustices that many people are born into and raised in, and just the amount of trauma that exists in many of those impoverished spaces, that it is not my responsibility to fix them. And that used to be like where this kind of mental therapy ended. Okay, it's not my responsibility to fix them. But what I learned most from being at the river every Monday on my Sabbath and the time I spent there during my sabbatical is very clearly that I can't fix those systemic issues. I can't fix the trauma in someone's life. Like, I literally do not have the power to fix them. I can't, pick up a semi-truck. There's things that I cannot do, and those two things are things that I cannot do. And it's been so ingrained in me, directly and indirectly in me, and I think some of that is the spiritual side of it, the prayer side of it, God can do anything side of it, the belief that I can, in fact, fix people in that way. And the thought that we have that if someone, that's gone through a lot of trauma, for example, is at a 1 when we meet them, that we, or that I as a pastor, can get them from a 1 up to a 10. That is where burnout and misery comes from, and the anxiety and the ruminating about why they're still making the choices that they're making. Perhaps I can be a part of moving them from a 1 to a 2 on the scale of 1 to 10, or maybe even a 1 to a 3 on the scale of 1 to 10. And learning that my role in their life, or my church's role in their life, is not to be the chain link that connects them to God, as if we are it in their life forever for the rest of their lives, but that I am a link on the chain. And, I look back at my life, you look back at your life, there's people that have influenced you. They've influenced you by 1 or 2 degrees. They're not people that are in your life anymore. You're not at that church anymore. And coming to an understanding that really is my role as a pastor, not only for those that have been deeply broken by severe trauma and systemic trauma, but also just anyone that is in my church, that these relationships at some point will end. And it is my role to influence them towards Jesus and God's kingdom and the gospel and the scriptures for this season of life that I'm with them. And that might be 1 or 2 degrees. It might be 5 or 6 degrees. But it is not the 360 right change that I take it on myself, that it is up to me to do. And if I lose that, I go back to this idea that it's my job to save people. And I depart from what God's called me to do and being effective at it. If I want to continue to be a pastor, if I want to continue doing Beyond the Battle groups, and for whatever reason, I struggle with this much more on my church pastoring, church planting side of my ministry than I do with Beyond the Battle guys, where I feel more a sense of like their responsibility and God's and anyway, those sorts of things, and not feeling like it's my job to to fix or to change someone's behavior in that sense. So just a mixed bag, right? And that's kind of what happens on a sabbatical. But I want to wrap this up here with just some of how do we do this? How am I doing this? And it comes from, I would say, unexpected places. And I've talked about this before. I don't know why I keep saying that. Sorry. The power of mindfulness, the power of being still. And yes, there's a Christian spiritual, scriptural practice of this, being Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I'm God. But I don't think most of us know like how to actually be still. What does that mean? And there is medical proof that being still in a mindful meditative state where you are intentionally focusing on your breath. You're focusing on the breath going in your body, doing some sort of kind of mental visualization, perhaps, of the breath going into your feet and then back up to top of your head, or feeling the weight of your body up against the floor or up against the chair or the bed. And that's where your focus goes. I can do it at the river. I can just look at the river and or the trees and or the clouds, and it's a sense of stillness. And think of it like, we've all heard this, don't think of a blue car. What's the first thing you think of? A blue car. Versus if I say, think of a red car, you're then able to think of a red car, and you're not thinking of the blue car. So what this mindfulness does, this being still, is it gives us our brain, which is so trained, the neural pathways, this is so real, are conditioned and trained. Just like if you're right-handed and not left-handed, good luck writing with your left hand or throwing a ball with your left hand. Our brain is the same way. It is so trained to not be still. It is so trained to be in anxiety mode. Anxiety would be ruminating on the past and thinking about all of the potential futures over and over and over again, and not being able to be in the present moment. So learning to slow the brain down to be still, in that stillness is being still and knowing that God is God, but there's actually a physical, mental practice to doing this. And as you begin breathing and focusing only on that, you become in the moment and present, perhaps for the first time. And the moment is all you have. That's all we have, is the moment we're in. The very second you're listening to this podcast is all you have. 10 seconds ago is past, and 10 seconds from now doesn't exist, right? So you could see why it's so mentally, it's such a mental workout and leads to burnout if our minds are always living somewhere that doesn't actually exist. All that exists is this moment. So when it comes to gratitude and thankfulness, it must happen in this moment. So I can breathe and focus on it. I can, in that, know that I'm being still and knowing that God is God, and I can be grateful for my breathing. I can be then grateful for the moment and the things that are in this moment. The things that are not in this moment is the person from my church or outreach that I'm doing that is, sort of just in a really unhealthy cycle of brokenness, addiction, dysfunction, and I'm trying to fix them and they're not fixed. Those are all the potential futures. That is not this moment. Yet that's where my mind will want to live. So I'm training it to live in the moment. And for me, doing that at the river is the place that works for my mind and my brain. But it goes back to what I can't control in people's lives, and it gets me away from those potential scenarios, trying to move this person from point A to point B, or this church issue from point A to point B, or this book I'm working on from point A to point B. Because once you get to B, there's always a C, and once you get to C, there's always a D, and so on. And that's the very definition of anxiety, where you're not actually living where you are in reality. Back to what I said at the beginning, the saying no. For me, the deep work, and I can't wrap this up for you for your life in the next couple minutes here on this getting longer 5-minute flip, but it's looking at the reasons that we say yes to things, the reason that we people please, and talking to a counselor about that. What are the wounds, you might say? What are these insecurities in me that my people pleasing is trying to protect? That when I people please, it puts an image of me forward that won't be judged in a way. See, I don't want to say no to someone and they're going to think I'm a bad person. I want to say yes so they think of me as a good and helpful person, as if my identity as a person is up to them, as if they are the judge and jury of my identity, if I'm a good or bad person, and so therefore I must say yes in order to be a good person. Do you see the difference of when you know deep down that you're loved, accepted, validated already, then you can say no because you know you yourself deserve love and kindness as well. And you don't have to be miserable. It's just whatever, for whatever reason that's there, that we can know our identity and then say no when we need to for our margin and boundaries in health and productivity, and I think longevity in ministry, true fruitfulness in ministry. We can say no so we can have those things. And if that person then thinks we're a bad person or judges us in some way, we don't give them the power of dictating who we are, because we know who we are. But again, this is ingrained in us from childhood. So just saying don't please people, or even God is pleased with you, you don't have to please people, isn't enough. We have to trace it all the way back and figure out where this came from, and then develop these new water slides for the brain to go down. And it's wild. I mean, for me, it includes and this is all guided by my counselor. And he first told me this, I'm like, I'm not doing that. Sounds stupid. Saying these affirmations to myself in the mirror of where my acceptance and validation comes from, and telling myself where it doesn't come from. And that actually changes my brain, along with remembering those things when I'm in those moments of stillness. And so I embrace my brokenness. I encourage you to embrace your brokenness. When I'm at the river, I can really feel my smallness and brokenness and the things I don't control. And when I breathe and focus on that, I feel my limits. I no longer feel like Superman. I feel the limits of my body. And in that, I experience God's love for me in my brokenness, rather than having to strive to be some kind of whole, super holy person, or the best-selling New York Times author, so to speak, in order to be loved, valued, accepted, even by God, that he would say, "Attaboy, you finally did it," right? So I encourage you to accept your limits, focus on your weakness, and in that feeling, even the involuntary things you wish you could change that you just can't seem to change, then to know he loves you in that, right now, in that feeling, in that moment. He loves you, he accepts you, he validates you. He says, "You're my beloved child, my beloved son, daughter, whom I love, and I'm well pleased with you." And in that stillness is when I can experience that. And the more I experience that, the stronger that foundation beneath me comes. And then as that strong foundation beneath me grows and solidifies, and I become more healthy, and I experience it and go, whoa, yeah, I want more of this. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Then when that foundation gets stronger with those types of disciplines and exercises that are very intentional, then I'm able to start saying no and having those boundaries and letting go of that person's judgment, letting go of that person's dysfunction, letting go of that person's issues, that I didn't cause their issues. And I could pray for them and hope for the best, but their issues are not my fault and responsibility. And I have to go to God and say, "God, what is mine to do?" And I think that will look different for all of us, but it's something we all have to take to God. So I hope that's helpful. This flip got a little long, but this will be my last one on the sabbatical stuff. And so, yeah, thanks for listening. That's it. I will see you next time on the flip side.
Thanks for listening to this 5-minute flip. Subscribe for more flips and long-form episodes of The Flip Side. Visit www.patreon.com/NoahFilippiak to support and get sweet Flipside swag.